Welcome to the Republic of Rugby, where we are going to get our teeth into the URC, which returns in this Six Nations break week. Loads to talk about, not least some massive games in South Africa, which is going to be at the front of mind for Jordan, proud Bulls fan and current, as we record, employee of the Sharks as well. That's going to be an interesting little split loyalties, just like it was when we were together in December.
Yeah, it is an interesting situation to be in. I'm kind of, my blood is blue, but I'm also on loan at the moment. So it's kind of clashing at the moment. So I win either way. Let's just put it that way.
How much is rugby in the minds of people in South Africa right now? Because it strikes me that the games between these South African provinces are the biggest games of the week by a mile. And we'll come on to the ins and outs of that at the minute. And I know you're in pre-season training with your club. Varsity has started. So does it feel like rugby's getting back on the map again?
I think yes and no, because we've been so focused on the Six Nations, especially on this channel. And also I've got some inside numbers on sort of how tickets are tracking for these local derbies, and they aren't great. I mean, we had Sharks Fest on the 20th of December, which was a sold-out Kings Park, which was incredible. I think Loftus is struggling a little bit. I think the other derby is struggling a little bit. So it's interesting because Varsity Cup has sort of come into the fray, and that's sort of been in the headlines, and all the stadiums are packed, and there's this new sort of vibe around Varsity Cup. I don't know how much attention's on the URC at the moment. And to me, I'm not getting the feeling that there's that many eyeballs on the URC this weekend, which is a little bit strange. I don't know if it's just a little bit too early in the week. But it doesn't feel like there's much interest.
You've just led me on to basically my overwhelming thought, and I don't know if there's a solution, and if there is one, I haven't got a clue what it is. But it is strange the way the year is structured. With like you're looking that way for a bit, and it's Six Nations. Then you're looking back over there, and it's URC, and now it's Champions Cup. Then we're back to URC, and now we're stopping for November, where there's more international rugby. It does make it hard to follow, and I mean. Super Rugby, for example, is in one block,
yeah,
and as it always was. And I don't know how you solve this problem. It's a bigger question, but I'm not. I think that's what you're pointing at there. It's a habit, isn't it? Oh, it's rugby season now. I'm watching. I'm a Stormers fan. I'm watching the Stormers. We're away this week. We're home next week. Then we're away. Then we're home. But it's just not like that. It disappears and then it comes back. And it must seem, if you're not a proper rugby nose like we are, it must seem like it pops up and goes away randomly.
Yeah, a good gauge for me is my dad, because he's like, I'm very deeply woven within the rugby community here, where he kind of just sort of bobs around. Well, I think watch games for my sake so that, we can sort of banter about it a little bit. But if my dad doesn't know what's going on, then I know that's a pretty good gauge of sort of what the overall public opinion is. And I'd be very surprised if he knows who the Bulls are playing this weekend. I should actually check with him. But I think that's a good gauge. And like you say, this sort of hopping back and forth between competitions definitely can't be good for sort of maintained viewership. Super Rugby do it very well. And I think that's why Super Rugby is probably one of the most successful competitions, not maybe from a global perspective, but locally. People buy in, and it's week after week after week. I mean, there's nothing better than waking up on a Saturday morning for me and watching the Blues versus the Crusaders. So it is an interesting one. And maybe people can let us know down in the comments if you guys have been waiting for this week of URC, if you're quite happy for it to sort of roll around and not pay too much interest into it. But it'd be interesting to gauge that.
There's an interesting comparison because the Premiership is now 10 teams, and as a result, there are no games during November internationals, and there's no games in the Premiership during the Six Nations. So theoretically, at least, England internationals are available for every single Premiership match. And that sounds better on the face of it, but that has its own problems because there's going to be, by the time the next Premiership game happens, there'll have been 2 months since the last one, which is not a solution either. So anyway, we've just detailed all the problems, but I think fundamentally one of the problems with the URC this weekend is Glasgow are playing, but it's not really Glasgow because the Glasgow team is the Scotland team. Leinster are playing, but it's not really Leinster because the Leinster team are playing for Ireland, and and Benetton and Italy the same. But so the only real games that I think I'm actually interested in generally speaking. There might be a couple of games here and there are dipping in and out of, but are those big South African derby matches, because that's going to be strength versus strength, and that's going to be matchups where there could be box spots on the line, and Rassie and his coaches will be watching and making calls on the next alignment camp, I would imagine.
100%. I think there's lots of pressure on Springboks that are playing, sort of fringe players of the Springboks that are playing. And I think the unions as a whole, because if you take a look at the log, the Stormers are third, so they're doing pretty decently, but their form hasn't been great. So those 2 losses to the Sharks. You've got the Lions in 7th, which is, I don't think they've ever made the top 8 of the URC. So that's big for the Lions if they can sort of end in the top 8 of the URC, but only 5 wins out of 11. You've got the Bulls in 8th. Also lacking some form. We saw them go through that terrible run, getting battered left, right, and centre. I think the Bristol Bears in the Champions Cup also put like 60 or 70 points on them. So they're fighting. They have turned their form around a little bit and will have their big guns, Andre Pollard, all the Boks, and hopefully Cameron Hanekom makes an appearance back. Then you got the Sharks at 10th, who started the season off slow, sort of had Plumtree as head coach. There's been a lot of shift there. JP Peterson has just been announced as the head coach, permanent head coach of the Sharks. So he's also sort of turning it around. So yes, it is big for the players, but also for these unions sort of fighting for that top 8 position. I think there's a lot of pressure on South African unions at the moment to make something happen. And the stakes are even higher because they're playing against each other.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty spicy. Who are the players that are maybe not in the box squad, but kind of could put their hands up and maybe do a number? I'm thinking of the youngsters at the Lions. One of them is, obviously Klekani, who just went over from the Sharks. Looking forward to seeing him get more regular rugby, and Pete as well. Those are just 2, but who are the others that are kind of on the radar?
I think you've probably got Kewan Horn, who does have a Springbok cap, but is definitely on the fringe there in the number 15 jersey. Fassi and Willemse just have that 15 jersey locked up super tight at the moment. Henko van Wyk, the centre for the Lions. You've got Ruan Venter, one of the loose forwards, who's also sort of there and thereabouts. I don't want to say Morne van den Berg's a fringe player because he's not, but I think he's been playing extremely well and is out to prove a point. But again, if he starts napping, going to sleep, there's so much depth in that scrum off position that he could go out. Faf is apparently making a comeback to South Africa to join the Cheetahs, so there's lots going on there.
And then Paul de Villiers, can he keep his momentum going? Because I think the back row loose forwards, particularly with guys have been out injured, and is Elric Lowe, like he's back and he's back and fully fit and firing. So you've got guys like him back in the mix. But de Villiers has been playing brilliantly. And with guys like Peter Steph Toy out for a while, there's opportunities, isn't there? It's really interesting, the age profile of the box squad as well, with the young lads coming through. It's going to be interesting to see which ones get plucked and put with the big boys. It's just a fascinating backdrop to keep an eye on, which is interesting for the actual matches themselves. But there is the small matter of the South African Shield as well.
There is. I'm going to get you the point standings here. So Sharks are defending champions, believe it or not. And they currently sit at the top of the SA Shield. So they sit at the bottom for SA rugby clubs on the actual log, but top of the Shield because they've been taking names against South African teams. So they sit on 16 points, they've played 5. Lions sit on 15 points, they've played 5. Then you've got Stormers in third, who have played 4 on 9 points, and Bulls, who have played 4 on 7 points. So if the Sharks win, they'll win the Shield. If they end up losing to the Bulls, then all of a sudden everyone has a shot. Bulls, Stormers, and Lions. So it's very interesting. And I think the last time the Sharks went to Loftus, they ended up beating the Bulls. And we know they beat them earlier this year. So it's very interesting to see sort of how these teams raise their games when they know that they're playing against fellow Springboks, fellow South Africans.
And it's a big couple of weeks for you, Jordan, and your beloved Bulls, because they welcome the Stormers to town next weekend. And that's a game I've never seen in the flesh, but I've remember the old games that I've watched back in Super Rugby days, and I've heard all about the Currie Cup days. The North-South thing, the Cape Tonians and the and the high veld dwellers. Can you try and, for people like me from the UK, or maybe not, not initiated in the history of rugby in SA, what is that rivalry like? What's it about?
It is massive. It is so big. So Bulls are from Pretoria, which is where I grew up, which is very Afrikaans. It's very traditional. It's almost like when you play schools that were based in Pretoria, it's always hard rugby. They play barefoot till about the age of 13. It's cold mornings. And then you've got Cape Town, where I stay now, where it almost feels a little bit softer, but you've got a lot of diversity within Cape Town that then make up these rugby teams. And for some reason, the Pretoria and Cape Town just don't mix. And you add rugby to that, you add brandy to that, you add the hostility of Loftus Versfeld, and it creates an extremely exciting rugby game. That's, if you ask a Bulls fan or a Stormers fan, that is the one game. It doesn't matter. We could be bottom of the log. If we beat the Stormers that year, it's one for the history books. So Loftus will be packed. It's at Loftus. And you've been to Loftus when that crowd is pumping brandy, Springboks, full to capacity. So that's going to be a special one. How many likes on this video for you to skip the Super Saturday and fly to South Africa for that game?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to be able to. I'm coming to South Africa so much later in the year. I've got to put some time in at home with the family. I can't have it all my own way. But yeah, so aside from the South African games, there's a lot of teams with the way the URC is stacked up at the minute. It's worth just kind of, because it's gone away for a little while. Certainly up north, it's been out of our mind for a while. But it's worth just having a look at where things stand in the URC and the latest standings. And as you said, Stormers have sort of dipped off. Glasgow, who Scotland, as we record this, could still win the Six Nations Championship. They are top of the log in the URC and going very nicely indeed.
100%.
Leinster
in second.
And again, sorry, what were you going to say then about Glasgow?
No, continue.
No, I was just going to say Ulster are also flying high, and Andy Farrell actually started picking the Ulstermen that have been playing so well, and look at what a difference they made. But one of the features of the URC to me is 36 points is third place, and you have to go down to, there's teams. Who would you say is out of the playoff picture at this point? You're just over halfway through the season.
Anyone 13th down, Edinburgh, 18 points.
Yeah, I think I'll go along with you on that. But even 18 points is only 7 points off the playoffs. So, but I'd say it's unlikely, but it's not impossible. You could make an argument that it's only the bottom two that are definitely kind of out and already thinking about next year, that's pretty amazing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100. And this is what I think the URC provides. That, I mean, I think Super Rugby is also similar, where teams sort of are pretty evenly stacked, and it creates this boiling pot of extremely high level rugby. It's very difficult to win away from home, and I think when you've got that sort of standard, when it's very difficult to go away and win, I think then you've got a special competition, because those away points count so much more.
Yeah. And when you've got a league competition where bonus points on the road are something to celebrate and pat yourself on the back for, then I think you're in a good spot, and that's exactly where the URC is. So it's good that we got some rugby to fill the void, because honestly, this 2 weeks, I'm so glad there's only one break week in the Six Nations, but this fortnight without international rugby feels like forever.
It does. Who do you think is going to sort of make the top 8 here?
So the top 4 that are in the top 4 currently, I think, will make the top 8. Cardiff, are they going to lose a bit of momentum? Munster have kind of been a bit wobbly. So I think the Bulls will make it. They'll definitely be in the top 8. So that's 5 teams. And then the final 3, Munster, Lions, Cardiff, Ospreys, Sharks, Benetton. That's a bun fight. I think it'll be 3 of those 5 or 6 teams.
So you're telling me there's a chance that all 4 South African unions make it? That would be unreal.
Yeah. I'd have to look at the fixtures of how many of them have done European away trips, because they are tough, aren't they? I mean, the South African teams do have it hard. They're having to do the multiple trips back and forth, what with Champions Cup and URC. It does make it that little bit harder, but yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
It is. You guys let us know what you think down in the comments. If you're looking forward to this weekend, if it's even hit your radar, maybe I've completely got this wrong, but that's just my feeling at the moment. I'm definitely going to be watching that and definitely catching that Bulls Stormers game just before Super Saturday kicks off.
Yeah, a couple of games on Friday night, Cardiff, Leinster, Edinburgh Scarlets, and then we've got a whole Saturday sat on our sofa doing nothing but. And of course, while you're watching the rugby, check back in here. Subscribe and we'll see you on the next one.